in the Americas. You know, 1492, we just talked about that, that was Columbus. And so for most of the last 500 years, these countries here, Europe, have been the richest, most powerful countries in the world. And the main countries that interacted with America were over here. I'm going to give this, we got Spain, and then up here, we call this green, France, and then over here, this one, England. Okay? So, 1500s, Spain landed over here. In the, I was doing you guys, the red marker giving me green colors.
You can't have both of them at the same time.
See, this is why I just like whiteboards. I hate smart boards. All right, how do I switch back to red?
Put the green down in the green spot.
Put the green down in the green spot. Okay. So Spain landed here, and immediately the diseases wiped out pretty much all the natives on these islands, and then after that the Spanish came in and killed the rest of them. Every single one of these natives died. There were no survivors. All the people who live there now are not descended from them. Spain pretty quickly started landing over here. They started setting up colonies in these areas, which is why this area now speaks Spanish. The Spanish really found there was a lot of gold in these areas. So in the 1500s, the Spanish colonies made them a lot of money, and Spain became the most powerful, richest country in the world. Then we get to the 1600s. In the 1600s, England and France started wanting to get in on that game. So France, they developed a few colonies, kind of patchwork, one there, one over here in Haiti, and then up here. And that's why these areas now speak French, because that's where those colonies landed. And then, let's see, the colors are all off. Sorry, that was supposed to be green. The English started landing here. Now they wanted money too. The Spanish had found a lot of gold, so they started looking for gold. There was no gold in this area, but they started running farms to make money. This is as good a time as any to mention the fact that to run these farms, they started basically kidnapping people from Africa and getting slaves from Africa to run all these areas. The Spanish did the same things to run their mines. So you had a huge number of people of African descent and European descent coming over to these areas, and you had the few survivors of the natives. So the whole North American continent, they have a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the world, which is different than almost anywhere else. There's always been a mixing of cultures, very interesting. Okay, so for the 1600s, we have these English colonies, which of course is why we speak English here in America. And these South colonies were about making money. But a second set of colonies, which if you ask me is where America really begins, ended up here, the northern colonies. And these are what we celebrate on Thanksgiving called the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims were a group of people who had a kind of a different version of Christianity than the rest of England. In fact, they'd sort of just lost a civil war. They believed in things like democracy, sort of. They wanted everyone to learn to read so they could study the Bible, so they could think for themselves. They really thought that was what God's plan was. And they believed in what they called religious freedom, because they were a different religion. Now, they didn't really live up to all those ideals, but they talked about it. It was a thing. And so they were supposed to end up here, but they got blown off course in a storm, and they just landed here. And so all the other people who were also religious outcasts and free thinkers, they ended up going here too. So you have this cluster of colonies up here, that these are all the misfits and the people who don't like being told what to do. And then you got this cluster of colonies down here, that these are the people who just came to make money, a lot of slave plantations. So there were always two very distinct groups. It was not one country. So that was all the 1600s. For over 150 years, these colonies were basically just left alone. England just kind of ignored them. They let them do their own thing. They let these people experiment with democracy and running themselves. But these European countries over here were still running the show, and they had an interesting habit of constantly being at war with each other. They were always going to war. So once these colonies were established, the wars bled over here. And so these peoples ended up fighting these people and such. It happened a lot. Shortly after, they had built up a big debt here,